Trading foreign exchange on margin carries a high level of risk and may not be suitable for all investors. The high degree of leverage can work against you. And before deciding to invest in foreign exchange, you should carefully consider your investment objectives, level of experience, and risk appetite. The possibility exists that you could sustain a loss of some or all of your initial investment, and therefore you should not invest money that you cannot afford to lose. You should be aware of all the risks associated with foreign exchange trading and seek advice from an independent financial advisor if you have any doubts.
The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good morning, everybody. This is Rob Booker, and I'm joined by Scott Welsh, and this is the Bossilator Watchlist webinar. Hi, Scott.
Hello there.
For those of you watching the recording, as you already know, when we do these recordings, Scott will say a few things, and then I'll repeat them so that it is easier to hear him. We'll eventually move to a version of recording this so that we don't have to repeat everything that Scott says. But what he says is super important anyway, so why not repeat them? If you want to follow along and chat with us during the webinar and ask questions, you should go to the piptoring.com/forum homepage, log into the forum, and chat inside the chat box to let us know any questions that you have during the course of the webinar. If you have any questions about trades or observations about anything that you're working on or questions about the Bossilator, you'll definitely want to ask those questions during this time as well. And Scott, I think your microphone might be really close to your speakers, but I'm not exactly sure about that. It's just, yeah, that's automatically better, I think. That's perfect. I don't know what changes, but it does make a difference. The first thing that I looked at this morning when I pulled up the watch list is the pound dollar. The pound dollar has been away on the watch list from the 15-minute 800 period simple moving average, along, Scott, with like a lot of other pairs for a long time. And so
That's a lot of extremity going on.
that's a lot of extremity going on. So my favorite chart right now is the pound dollar chart. It was my favorite last week. That trade stopped out. That trade did not work. But we're back here on the 15-minute pound dollar chart looking at what I think is perhaps the best Bossilator setup that we've seen for a while. The pound dollar has been away from the 800 period simple moving average for between 1,200 and 1,400 bars, depending on how you look at it. There's no sure thing here, and every chart's going to have slight differences. You can see here, Scott, that not only do we have a nice trend line up here that I just drew on my chart, but we also see the regular stochastic oscillator just barely curling up here, just barely moving up. And I'm super excited about this. So this is a buy trade for me right around now. It's interesting that these morning watch list webinars more commonly line up with trade entries than the evening watch list webinars did. I would move my stop to break even, fairly quickly. There can be up to 170 pips of profit on this trade right now, and the stop loss on the trade is going to be placed down in the 56.30 area. That's about 40 pips away. So you're looking at a profit target of at least 170 pips and a stop loss of about 40. So that's a significantly positive risk to reward ratio, approximately 4-to-1 reward to risk. That's my favorite watch list trade right now. That's my favorite trade. I don't see any comments or questions in the chat box or anywhere else, but this is my favorite one right now. Of course, there's no guarantee that it's going to work, so you don't want to be, so excited about this that you go out there and you risk your whole account or do anything wild about it. As always, this is counter trend trading right here, and the pound dollar is my favorite currency pair on the watch list right now. It is way overdue for a trip back to the 800 period simple moving average on the 15-minute chart, and this trade could be open for up to a week as you wait for it to get back, but generally it would close faster than that. Scott, do you have any comments about that?
No,
For those of you on the recording, Scott let us know that there's multiple reasons to like this. There's a trend line here. There's divergence for those of you that understand or follow the principles of divergence. There's the oversold stochastic oscillator that's just turning up now. There's the 1200 plus Bossilator reading. There's a giant risk to reward on this. The entry on this trade comes right around now. Like I was saying, it's interesting to do these webinars and have the entry on a trade come right when we're meeting in the webinar, but that's exactly what's happening right now, is we're getting a possible entry right here. And for those of you that are new or inexperienced Bossilator traders, this is kind of what you trade the Bossilator for. This is what you look for. This is the whole thing right here. And it's right in front of us and playing out as we speak. There's no guarantee of success, and past performance is not necessarily indicative of future results. And this isn't a trade recommendation, and it's not a signal or anything like that. It's simply an observation that all of the elements of a Bossilator trade that we look for seem to be appearing at the same time here. And so this is a prime example of what a Bossilator trade looks like. And remember, it still can fail, so you want to always trade with the smallest amount of leverage possible, risk the smallest amount of money possible in a trade. Always adhere to solid risk management principles, or else you're going to blow up your account and you'll never get a chance to trade for a living or anything else like that. So I've just repeated the entry for Justo Lamo and then wait for the trendline breakout. No, not necessarily. No, it's not necessary to wait for that trendline breakout. That's not actually necessary at all. There's the entry right here on the regular stochastic crossover, and that's coming right now. So 40 pip stop approximately, and an approximate 170 pip profit target. Scott, do you have any stocks to look at this morning?
Yes, absolutely.
All right, let's take a look at what Bossilator trades look like in the stock market today. As you know, Scott tends to look at stocks that are value stocks or traditionally have good fundamentals, and waits for Bossilator readings that give a trade. You don't have to be a stock trader to trade the Bossilator, but it is interesting to see how these principles work in other markets. It's not just applicable to the currency market, but also to other markets, long and short. And here we go. Scott, I'm going to let you take it away.
All right, here is IPXL, also known as Impact Laboratories. Follow very closely. I have no idea what this company is. But anyway, once again, this is happening as we speak. We've got an overbought stochastic. We've got 1,034 bars away. This would be, it's also crossing one of my moving averages on here, which is the 8 exponential. Once again, you can draw a trend line if you wanted to, wait for that. We've got multiple reasons, just like the pound dollar, to possibly go short Impact Laboratories pretty soon, if not right now, if you'd like to have it.
Excellent. And this is a Bossilator reading that is exceptional on the 1-minute chart. These 1-minute chart trades, they don't take long to complete. They still adhere to the principles of risk management that we've already discussed. You don't want to enter a trade that has, a giant stop loss and a minor profit target, no matter how high probability you think the whole situation is. Scott, appreciate your observations. Do you have another one?
Yeah, for those who don't like to go short, I prefer to put on a watch list, which I think we're doing a watch list webinar.
Yeah.
Get to 1,000, that'd be very interesting.
Scott mentions that GTAT is underneath the 800 period simple moving average. It's been underneath the 800 period simple moving average on the 1-minute chart for about 874 candles. That's an excessive reading on the Bossilator. These stocks that we're looking at here are stocks that traditionally have good fundamentals, are value traded stocks, good PE ratios and whatnot. Well-run companies, to the best of our knowledge. There is no sure thing, and past performance is not necessarily indicative of future results. But imagine that you combined value investing or looking at stocks that have good fundamentals and waiting for those stocks to become oversold or reach an excessive reading on the Bossilator, and that's what you're looking at right here. This stock comes from a value-oriented watch list, and the stock is now on sale. Scott, I would even propose that if one would wait for this to become oversold, just like you mentioned, and fall and drop back down into the the high $8 range, or maybe even the mid $8 range, and become oversold, that this does represent a buy opportunity for people who are stock traders and who have the account to handle it and whatever else. Has an excellent risk to reward ratio. And because these are value-oriented stocks, when you get to the 800 period simple moving average, you might close the majority of your position And you might let a piece of that position run with the expectation that in a declining stock market in general, that you might have gotten an opportunity to buy something of value and hold on to it for a little while longer. So there's no reason why, and we've stated this a million times, there's no reason why you wouldn't hold on a little bit longer to a part of your position if it seems to go well and seems to go in your favor. A Bossilator reading of 873 is good, but this is going to be really nice when it gets up to 900, 950, or 1,000 on the Bossilator on this 1 minute chart. It may take another day for this trade to open up, but it's definitely worth keeping your eye on if you are an equities trader and you're looking at the Bossilator. If not, these principles apply to any financial instrument that we look at. No matter what market it's in, the same principles are going to apply. What else do you have for us, Scott? Scott mentioned two things that are really important with respect to GTAT. It's an under $10 stock, so remember that there are certain risks that apply when trading a stock like that. Next, Scott brought up a Dow 30 stock, Caterpillar, CAT, on the 1 minute chart. It's only been away for 300 bars, but this is a stock, once again, it's a high volume stock, it's a very liquid stock, and this is something that Scott's starting to watch. Could this stock get to the point where it reaches a Bossilator reading of 750 or 800 and becomes a buy trade on the Bossilator? It would be certainly one worth looking at because it's highly liquid, easy to trade, and is a stock with all of the characteristics of something that we'd like to be involved in. Do you have anything else? Scott brings up Procter & Gamble here, PG. It's a stock, as you know, everybody has something in their house that they bought from PG. And if it can fill this gap and jump upward and give a better risk to reward ratio, it might be something worth doing. The stock is going sideways right now on the 1 minute chart. And when a stock goes sideways or any financial instrument goes sideways, you vacillate between overbought and oversold very easily and very frequently because slight movements represent deviations from the mean. And so when moving in a tight range, it's very easy for this to go overbought or oversold. And so what Scott just mentioned, which is really important, is that you wouldn't want to read too much into the fact that this is going overbought right now. And perhaps if it could fill the gap and jump upwards and get to a reading of 850, 950, or 1,000 on the 1 minute chart and jump up higher and give a better risk to reward ratio, this could be something worth taking a look at. The same principles apply in the stock market as apply to any other financial instrument. This could be a chart of the euro dollar for all we care. The same principles apply. We need a good risk to reward. We need a Bossilator reading that is excessive, and those elements matter more than what company it is and what market we're in and whatever else. Scott, I have a couple things to mention here. Alan says, is the divergence significant on the stochastic like other indicators like CCI and MACD, or just the crossover? I'm going to become the presenter and together with you answer that question. For traders interested in divergence, the question often is, what oscillator should I use to judge the divergence? Is the regular stochastic better than the Wallaby, is better than the CCI, is better than the momentum, is better than the MACD? And the answer is, Alan, if you're interested in divergence, there is no one best indicator. There's just what's best for you and what you feel the most comfortable with and have the most experience with. For example, a race car driver that races for, one team is going to drive a certain car and be more familiar with that. And if you put him in a team car from another team, he's not going to do as well. It's not that each car is one's faster than the other. They probably can both go the same speed. But what really matters is the handling and the way that it feels and the way the seat is close to the steering wheel and whatever else. And so you want to operate something you're comfortable with and not worry so much about whether you picked the best indicator or not. You probably can't ever pick the best indicator, and if you tried to pick the best one, you'd probably fail, and so would I. And so we don't want to worry about that as much. It's a good question. So the crossover is probably good enough, and divergence on just about any momentum or oscillator indicator is probably good. Cesar says, thanks for the pound dollar idea. I was about to take it, but the fundamental tells me not to do it. Scott, that's an interesting question. The fundamentals tell him not to do it. Scott, if somebody's got a fundamental view that the pound dollar is headed lower, and they have some experience with those fundamentals, meaning they've traded those fundamentals successfully, and they have a probability associated with trading those fundamentals, we would certainly not ask them to trade against their own fundamental trading approach.
No, absolutely. If there's a methodology and there's something that's been tested and it's something that you're comfortable with, absolutely. But
Right.
if you read something for a factory and you just have a general feeling based on what you read and get your chart measured otherwise, then I would say go against it.
Right. Yeah, if you're saying that the fundamentals tell you not to do it because you read something this morning from some person that you read often, those people are going to be right and wrong equal amounts of the time. And so, but if you have a fundamental approach that you built, like you have fundamental analysis that you do on a currency and a nation and an interest rate picture, that you have determined that you have a system with a probability of success based on fundamentals, that's different. I would trust that. I would not trust fundamental views that you heard on television or read in the newspaper or that you read from someone else. I would only trust a system that you've tested for yourself. That includes this as well. If you haven't tested it and you don't know anything about it, you wouldn't want to trust this either. It's not just applicable to the, to one type of analysis. And I think that covers most of the questions that came through. Well, you've joined us for a 17-minute Bossilator Watchlist webinar. This has been recorded, and it will be uploaded very soon, and it will be available on the web, and we'll be back tomorrow at the same time, and we'll see how these trades played out, and we'll see what trades you've taken during that time. Thanks a million, Scott. I really appreciate you being here.